Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of NextGen Industrialists, where we explore the future of the industrial sector, innovation, and entrepreneurship. I am your host, Belinda Ephraim. In today's episode, we are diving deep into a topic that's reshaping the industrial landscape: corporate acquisitions in the age of AI. How do you position your company to be an attractive acquisition target? What are the strategic imperatives that drive corporate buyers in today's technology driven market? And joining us today is Nadia Gill. She is the Senior Vice President of Strategy at Hitachi Digital. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. With a fascinating journey from PricewaterhouseCoopers to Google Cloud, then the Brady Manufacturing Company, which is a manufacturing company for placement of people and goods. And now she's leading strategy at one of the world's most innovative industrial technology companies, Hitachi Digital. Nadia brings a unique perspective on how AI is transforming corporate M&A strategies. Whether you are an entrepreneur building for an exit, an executive planning your next strategic acquisition, or an industrial leader navigating digital transformation, this conversation will give you actionable insights into the future of industrial mergers and acquisitions. Nadia, welcome to NextGen Industrialists.
Oh, thank you for having me, Belinda.
Yes, you're very welcome. I'm really excited to have you here because in my work as an M&A advisor, we have relationships with a lot of business owners that are either looking to exit and or make acquisitions. And oftentimes, it would be nice to have a corporate buyer versus a financial buyer, such as a private equity firm, here on the mic. So I want to thank you so much for spending quality time with me. This is a real privilege for me to invite people like yourself into conversation. When I do these things, I always liken my interviews to the indigenous African traditions of storytelling in community. I'm going to start, but before I do, I want you to know that you are in absolute control. You can choose to not answer a question or answer the question any way that you want to. Before we dive into the mechanics of corporate strategy in the age of AI, I'd love to learn more about your personal origin story.
Oh gosh, nobody had ever asked me that question, particularly live. Well, I'm originally Mexican, hence the accent, but now I'm American. And I joke that I went to college undergrad for accounting, mostly because there is a big tradition of accounting in my family. My mother is an accountant, my sister is an accountant, my uncle, my cousins are accountants. This is like when a lot of families, there are a lot of doctors, you know what I mean? The same for my family, but with CPAs. So for me, it was like a no-brainer. You have to go into accounting. And then, of course, I started doing work prior to PwC in a CPA firm. And I realized I hated accounting because I was good at it. This is one of those situations when you are good at something, but you hate it anyway. So I was great at taxes and creating financial statements for our clients, but I just couldn't deal with it. Being there for 10 hours, 12 hours, doing those things over and over, I couldn't. So I found how to change while still using my degree in accounting. PwC gave me the opportunity to join both their forensic and mergers and acquisition group. And it was life-changing for me. I loved every minute, every hour of it, because that's how I got to know him. And I was on the due diligence side of M&A, but it's still extremely exciting. And, I fell in love with the deal, the ability to jump from company to company's projects and help them build the case for an acquisition or a divestiture. So that's basically the origin story. Then, I came to the US to study at Wharton because, what else can you go for finance? Is the top number one for finance. And yeah, of course, I thought back then, I remember telling everyone, oh, I'm coming back. I left Mexico and, oh yeah, I'm coming back, Mom. And in 2 years, I'm going to finish my degree, come back. And then I got my internship at Siemens, the German company, and I loved it so much. They gave me a full-time offer after my MBA, and I loved it, and I couldn't come back. I stayed, and I blinked, and next year is going to be 20 years since I left.
Wow. It's so funny. I was looking at your bio. I think we were actually both at Siemens around the same time.
Wow, which
Yeah.
area, which
I
industry?
was in Siemens Financial. So we were doing M&A transactions over at Siemens. This was in 2008, 2009.
Yeah, totally. Which city? Iselin?
So we were in Iselin, and then we were in Manhattan. Yes.
Okay, I know exactly where you were. I was in 2008. I was in Malvern, Pennsylvania, with healthcare. Then 2010, I was in New Jersey in the Piscataway office.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
but I used to go to the Iselin office all the time, so that's so funny.
Yes. That was a lot of fun because obviously, as you know, Siemens is an industrials company, global.
Yeah.
And it was actually, I think, my third firm, M&A firm. Prior to that was SunTrust Bank, where I did corporate investment banking for Fortune 500 companies. And then Merrill Lynch, where I did mostly leverage buyout, and then Siemens. So I was on the other side of every transaction that you were on, from PwC to.
So it was you. Now I know who denied my. No, just kidding.
No, we had to look at your accounting due diligence and your sell side due diligence. So we're going to talk about all of that, the elements.
So you were in Merrill, which year? 2006.
Yes, I was
Those were the years of the LBO. In the moment you said LBO, is like 2006.
Yeah.
See, are you impressed with my memory?
A lot of LBOs, a lot of working with KKR, Thomas Lee, Bain Capital. That's really when that sort of.
Those were the years, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I know. It really was. I cut my teeth. But I think, to your point, when you talk about these experiences that we both share, the ability to, and I think I struggle with this a lot in the industry today, where there has been this move more from a marketing perspective to actually sort of dig a stake in the ground and say you're a specialist. So I'm a specialist, and this is all that I do. Yeah. And I don't agree with that. I believe in being a generalist, because when you're a generalist, like you, when you were at PwC and Siemens, I'm sure that in 1 week, when you look at your schedule, that you were looking at probably 10 different industries or companies, correct? So then it gives you a really broad range of expertise as you kind of go into your trajectory. So what fundamental shifts have you observed in industrial M&A strategies over the past decade?
Where do I start on that one? It's a very complex question. Yes. Well, so let me pedal back. So we're the last decade. So we're talking 2015, 2024. So several things have happened, where we were, the prior question we were talking, and it was, 2009, 2010. It was right after the recession, and there was no M&A, essentially. Everything was dry. New York was a ghost town. And then things started opening up in 2011, still very shy, 12, but 2015 was a hot year. And that year, I remember I was working on the GE Capital divestiture. 2015, 2016, that was a fantastic year for divestitures. Those years, 2018, all the way to 2022.
2022, yeah. Even 2021, yeah. Early 2022, yes.
Yes. And so in terms of the shifts, besides the fact that, yes, you are talking about very high specialization, you see the earliest stages of, and I say early stages, but my colleagues in machine learning would beg to differ, but I see a lot of starting, a lot of AI already starting, particularly 2018, which is the year when Google made available predictive analytics and predicting text on their Google Workspace, and other companies started gearing towards that. And how does that translate in industrials? By the way, I spend a lot of time thinking about this, particularly because it's part of my job. And in industrials, it's a fascinating area of the world in the sense that it is a more stable area than, let's say, banking or pharma or biotech. People there stay there for their entire careers. The players, the circle of players is relatively small. Once you bump into someone, you're meant to work with the same people in different areas over and over. What this means is that because it's so stable, their adoption for new technologies and change is slightly slower for a variety of reasons. I mean, they have, the clients that also behave in the same way from a strategy perspective. What this means is now industrial coming into the game of AI and any ITOT work with a lot of hunger. And that's what we're going to continue seeing for the upcoming years. The big three trends that I see coming up that we didn't have in 2015, for example, is certainly cybersecurity becoming extremely important, any kind of data and ITOT work. And that also includes any predictive maintenance kind of work, anything that you can digitize that before you had in physical gadgets, and now, trying to get that into the cloud. Modernization, I see it a lot. And I think it's a very interesting time for industrials.
Yeah, it's crucial, especially considering how fast AI is shaping industries, and companies within the industrial sector tend to be sort of laggards in a sense, especially the middle market. So maybe not the Fortune 500s. Yep. We're starting to see that.
And there is a reason for that, by the way. If you think of the big, amazing players, Honeywell, Rockwell Automation, Siemens, they have strategy departments thinking of this and acting of this, and they have deeper pockets to do the investments that they need. Middle market companies don't have these capabilities or the big pockets.
Yes. And I think that's what's going to make acquisition, even though I feel like 2025, we're going to start to see an uptick in M&A activity. But what I'm finding is that from a strategic value add, it's actually going to be more difficult for middle market companies to attain those enterprise values, especially if they're not technology driven, as you said, because of limited access to resources.
Totally. And also both on the buyer side and on the selling side, because if you think in general valuations, so for example, valuations have been having what a little bit of a triangles. If you in the year 2007 through 2000 and after the markets fell 2008 through 2011, we were talking multiples under 10. 2012, 2011, nothing under 10, everything. And 2015, I mean, we're seeing your multiples close to 20. And I would be like, who would pay for this at this price? 2022, 2023, I saw valuations coming down, but it is hard. Like if a middle market industrial company wants to buy anything that has some kind of AI machine learning component that is significant and groundbreaking and that can be scalable to their company, they're not looking anything under 20x.
Yep. So let's talk about that. How should industrial companies think about balancing the traditional assets that they have versus the applied AI capabilities?
That's a tough one. And it depends what they want to be when they grow up.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit, because I find that when you're an entrepreneur, and you and I are both entrepreneurs also, in addition to our corporate experience, we are also investors, right? So when you start a business, the reason mostly is because of financial independence. And then you put your head down and you start to work on your business. But you forget to lift your head up and to dream and to envision and to see what that future looks like. So why is that a problem when it now comes time to exit, when they have not really had the chance to do the work prior to exiting the business?
I have done a lot of angel investing. I'm telling you, kids, entrepreneurs these days they literally just start the company ready for the exit. They're visualizing an exit in 2 years, and at least the good ones are surrounding themselves with mentors and connections that are telling them exactly what to do and how to position their startup to get the biggest valuation possible. But I agree with you. For the rest of entrepreneurs, they are competing against that. They are competing against other startups that have the brands on their board and the connections that are going to help them create those multi-million, sometimes multi-billion dollar exits.
Yeah, exactly. So, can you walk us through the framework for evaluating potential acquisition targets?
As a corporate.
Yeah, as a corporate acquirer, when you're looking at to make these acquisitions, especially now in this tech-enabled environment, can you share that framework that can apply maybe to both startups, venture-backed startups, and middle market bootstrap companies that have grown to 50 or $100 million?
So first, I want to clarify, Hitachi, I'm not doing M&As. So I will tell you the framework that I have seen done in prior jobs. And this is a very good framework that I used to use in prior lives, which is, first of all, and that's what now I'm in a strategy. I actually decided to move a step further above M&A and go into strategy, because you cannot be a great M&A practitioner if you do not understand the strategy. And particularly if you are not at the table where the strategy decisions are being made. Because first of all, the company itself, the corporation, has to make a decision. Again, what do they want to be in, when they grow up? Where do they want to be in 3 years, in 5 years? And then you go backwards from there. You map the steps that will get you there. So it's not about what you have today, but actually where you want to play, what you want to be. Forget about what you have today. And that's in an ideal situation where the company has a very competent strategy team that has actually a voice to be, and the power to make those definitions. What I have seen as well is that in a lot of companies, they just want to continue doing what they are doing and add 3%, 5% growth to what they are doing now. That's another way of getting it done. Heading back to the first portion, which is, again, assuming in a good strategy team, you are defining where you want to be positioned, and you go backwards. Then that's when you map what do you need to get to make it happen. What are your gaps between what you have now in order to make it where you want to be? And those gaps need to be defined in terms of both the capability gaps and the scale gaps, and also the geography gaps, because sometimes you are already doing that work. You just need to make it stronger. Sometimes you haven't even started, and that's when M&A comes in. It's the easiest and fastest way, and at the same time the hardest and the slowest way of getting it done. And those are the gaps. Again, in an ideal situation, the company has defined the gaps that they want to fill, in particular via mergers and acquisitions. And the next step is to look at what it is in the market happening right now. What are our competitors acquiring? Because you always have to calibrate it that way, because maybe you are ahead of the curve, or maybe you are behind the curve and the competitors already are there, and you might as well not even bother. You're never going to win that battle. Or again, maybe that's where your industry is moving. You always have to calibrate, and again, assuming that you are in a great mergers and acquisitions team in a corporate company, they usually have both internal and external connections. And also, again, I always joke, the industry is very small. So colleagues that I used to work with at Siemens, now they are at Honeywell, and colleagues from Honeywell are now at Siemens, and vice versa. And everybody knows each other. And in an ideal situation, whenever you're trying to sell something, as a corporate, a strategy person, you know where to place the calls, because again, there is a lot of people who go into investment banking, to the big banks, middle-sized banks, and so on. My point is, ideally, as the next step, you have your network of bankers, advisors, private equity, lawyers, even the startup world and competitors who can guide you as to, these are potential targets that are going to exit soon. And, this is kind of the price they're going to go for, particularly if you're in a middle market company, to decide whether it is worth it to even enter this race, or just a waste of the time of your board and your analyst. And it goes from there. You know what I mean? Every corporate team, M&A team, has a list of targets that they keep an eye on, like the watch list and the priority list of the gaps. And again, it's fun. I remember I used to have my lists, and we would be like, oh, there was an exit here. Oh, how did we didn't get invited to the table, or we got invited and we didn't win it. Or sometimes, when you win, it's great, but then of course it's more work for your team.
So it sounds as though, in addition to maybe having a framework, understanding the strategic vision, it's not just waking up one day and saying, oh, I'm going to exit today, and expecting a 10x, multiple for your business. It's also understanding the gaps within the company. And I find a lot of non-venture backed companies, middle market companies, the capability gap is pretty significant. Most of it rests on the founder, and they haven't really built out a middle management team to carry that company. And so when you look at all of that, and it sounds as though companies should also be networking. You talked about having a list. Can you talk about how did you even get that list?
Several ways. And you get, as a corporate acquirer, you, particularly sitting in a strategy team, you get the list both from internal and external sources. The internal would be what I call your feet on the ground, your salespeople. You wouldn't believe how many targets I have gotten over the years from my sales teams, that they come to me and they say, hey, Nadia, I heard that X company is going to divest this division. And I think it's a good acquisition for us because, they have seen the product, they have seen their fellow salespeople in competition. You should take a look into that. Again, feet on the ground. And definitely there are amazing databases. For me, I used to live and breathe Dealbook. You find them there as well. My ex-manager used to say, Google is your friend. So I actually have a very funny story, because ChatGPT went out in the beginning of, was it 2023? I was like, oh, let's check this out. Let's test it. So I put, comparable companies to one of my dream targets, because again, we all have a dream target or a few dream targets. And I put it on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gave me a list, and it was like not even close, of comparable companies. But my point, because I had all these big expectations, like, wow, this is going to replace a few analysts in my team, and please, not even close. So the point is, at least the robots are not taking those jobs yet. The M&A analyst. Not yet.
So let's say you make this acquisition, you have this you have the strategic vision, you figure out where the gaps are, and that's when you make the acquisition. How do you assess cultural fit? I feel when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, and I think anything in life, it's really about the people. So how does cultural fit impact M&A transactions?
And it's funny, I was talking about it with a fellow CSO last month. By the way, shout out to our NEHR practitioner listening in, because you cannot underestimate how amazing your deal ends up being if you have a competent and committed HR, mergers and acquisition person on your side. And I have worked with the best, and just night and day, because they're the ones helping you, working with you, focusing on the cultural side. Now, bear in mind that if you are, let's say, relatively older company that has been around for over 50 years, and that is acquiring a startup. This is like kind of the most extreme acquisitions that you can get. There is a slight difference when, let's say, Amazon or Meta are acquiring a startup, and it still is a marriage of two completely different worlds. But when you have an industrial acquiring a very edgy ITOT startup, night and day.
Yeah.
And you're right that a lot of those times everything is riding on the founder, and there is not an easy way of bridging that difference. It requires a lot of commitment, mostly on the side of the acquisition, because I have promised you that no matter how much you would try to change the older company, they move kind of an inch, but the acquisition will have to come closer and move like 60%.
Wow. And I can see that being actually a massive issue because a lot of legacy industrial companies are very slow to move in terms of their processes and just how they operate in general.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do not underestimate the ambition and greediness of certain founders who really want the exit, because they see, let's say, $500 million on the table, and they are like, for $500 million, I'll become dodgy and become more like that company that's acquiring me.
And so what happens in that situation then?
Nothing. Whatever is expected, the founder sticks until his or her golden handcuffs are over, and then leaves, and the rest of the startup company team members have to stay and endure, or they quit. But I've seen it so many times that we're in the middle of a deal, and there is this difference in culture, and the founder are like, yeah, we can do this, yes, we can come to the office 5 days per week, yes, yeah. Because it's a lot of money.
Yeah, and especially with industrials companies, you kind of need to be there. I think there's this sort of misconception in the zeitgeist around return to work, and they expect that if the core function of a company is manufacturing, then how would you expect people to work remotely when they have to build things?
Yes, and that's tough. Particularly for industrial companies, that's another one of these vicious cycles that I have seen that makes them fall a little bit more behind, because if you are a top engineer in any university or college, you wouldn't want, unless you have family issues that prevent you and you need kind of a stability for time, they don't want to come work to a middle market or even a big industrial company. They want to go work at the Googles of the world or build their own stuff. Then even for the second tier of engineers, they still want to have some kind of hybrid work. And I am a big believer on, actually, for what's worth, on hybrid. I think you can achieve that happy balance between being in the office and having those magical hallway conversations with your colleagues, and at the same time having that alone time at home where you can put your head down and get work done without distractions.
And be more productive. So how important is the founding team's technical depth versus the business acumen?
Tough one. If you ask an engineer, the engineer will tell you you want the technical depth. So you can have both, I think. I'm a big fan that maybe, this is a very Latino thing, but we believe we can get both. And because if you have a technical founder that surrounds himself or herself with someone who is excellent on the commercial side, and if they respect each other and help each other, I have seen that working very well.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's also important because both of them have to work well, especially when they're being acquired by a publicly traded company, because then that is actually accretive to the bottom line, right?
Yes. And this is assuming, this is assuming if they have the scale, because the issue sometimes with startups is that if they are too small, after the acquisition, they're just a drop in the bucket. or more of a marketing thing rather than adding real value to the bottom line of the company that acquired them.
Unless there is that strategic value within the target, right? The business to be acquired that ties into the acquirers. We started this conversation talking about that framework and having that strategic vision 3-5 years from now, because recently Hitachi Digital actually made an acquisition. They acquired MA Micro Automation of Germany, which is a robotic systems integrator mostly focused on the medical industry. So they do robotic automation and things like that. And the reason why I bring that up is because for founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, middle market, venture backed, however you want to define yourself, it is always important in your industry. And Nadia, please just let me know what you think about this, reading the news clippings for acquisitions. And the reason why is because a lot of these companies will explicitly say why they actually made that acquisition and how it ties into that strategic vision. So can we just maybe give some pointers for what business owners, entrepreneurs how they should think about the strategic value that they can bring to an acquirer?
I'm still laughing that you mentioned that that's what you love to read. Some people like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the New Yorker. Or I would like to, sit on a train ride with you, on a plane ride with you, and check, what does she have in her handbag for reading? Funny.
Do you really want to know what I'm reading right now? You don't want to know, but yes, I do. I actually love reading.
So that's an interesting thing. And in an ideal world, and I think this happens actually pretty regularly. If you're a startup or a business owner starting your own company, since the beginning, who are the potential acquirers of your company? You know who you are targeting, because particularly if you are doing something in a specific industry, if let's say if you are working in on a biotech startup, and you know who are the larger players and where you can be a talk in for. And yes, it's funny when you talk about it, because what I have seen lately in industrials and in general in every industry, it's all about AI. It's all about accelerating something, whether that acceleration comes in the shape of productivity, creating, a layer of software on top of your physical products, whether it is creating an entirely new way of selling or shopping, or anything new that uses your product that did not exist before. I find that fascinating now when I read the clippings of the strategic reasons of an acquisition.
I know. Such a nerd. But that's my jam. So what can I tell you?
You're in the right industry if that's exactly what you like to read. You gotta love it. Otherwise, life is too sad. You know what I mean? Like if you don't love it, and this is something that you do for 14 hours per day, and come on.
Yeah, this is all I do day in, day out. So how do you view the trade-off between growth and profitability?
I'm a big fan of growth, and I always remember this with Amazon, for example, that for a number of years they were losing money. I don't have the number right now, but it was for certain more than 10 years since the beginning. And Jeff Bezos kept saying to the investors, kind of, have patience, because once we pass the hump, you're going to see the results. And wow, I mean, what results they have had. And I see it particularly in industrials, because we are talking about a heavy R&D set of investments, whether it is organic or inorganic. You're looking at hardware, you're looking at land, machinery. I mean, all of those lower your margins. And if you are doing this, if you're in industrial, you gotta get used to that, particularly if you're an investor for industrials, because sooner or later, if everything is done correctly and if the stars are aligned, I mean, you're going to see the results.
Yes, absolutely. And the way I like to tell my clients is think about it this way. If your business isn't really growing, pretty much either equivalent, I like to use the Russell 3000 benchmark or maybe even the S benchmark, but is your business from a revenue growth perspective, is it growing in line with this industrial benchmark or is it growing under? Because then that can actually impact how the strategic value you bring to the table.
Totally, totally.
Would
Yeah.
you agree with that?
Um,
That's
in
one
general,
factor.
yes. It depends on the particulars of the company that you're talking to. But in general, yes. Yes, I agree with you.
Okay, so let's go into rapid fire round where you agree to give us your instant, unfiltered takes on some popular beliefs. Are you ready?
All right. All right. Okay. Okay. Never done one of those. So, okay. Talk to me. All
What
these
in
new things. Okay. Talk to me.
Yay, I'm trying to keep it, active.
Yeah,
Okay,
seriously.
what industrial sectors are undervalued by the market right now?
That's a good one. That's a very good one. Energy, particularly oil and gas, I think it is still undervalued.
Agreed.
Hold on. Anything industrial automation as well.
Okay, that's undervalued, right?
Oh,
Because
absolutely. AI is going to come in and explode it. Water, absolutely water, because we humans need it. As far as I know, there is not enough water in Mars, not yet.
actually went down Mars instead of water. So
Water purification, sewage, that sort
yeah,
of thing.
water treatment and also waste management, I feel.
Yes, because nobody likes it. It's kind of the swan, the ugly ducky that will become a swan. Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah, I had a couple of waste management transactions back in the day. How do you see the role of venture capital, private equity evolving in industrial tech?
Evolving.
Evolving.
It's funny. So I belong to this amazing group of CSOs, and some of them are like me, they're corporate, and some of them are from private equity. And I was joking. I said in one of our meetings, "Oh my God, these private equity people, they have deep pockets and just go and throw money to the valuations and make them bigger." And the PE guy said, "That's so funny. That's exactly what I said about corporate M&A. We don't have deep pockets. You are the ones." So I see the industry growing. See, there is several. I can talk. I know it's rapid, but oh my God, let me get going on this one.
Okay, we can definitely expand.
VC. When I was young and innocent, VC was so glamorous, and what a mystique around it. Now the barriers of entry to become a VC are gone down significantly because there is a lot of demystification, there is a lot of money, and a lot of rich people willing to give you money if you want to do your own VC. Particularly, those doors were closed for a number of years for people like us, and so I see a lot of PEs popping up, a lot of VCs popping up, and driving up the valuations. But yes, it's going to grow. I think corporates are going to continue valuing and buying from PEs and VCs. Yes.
All right. What conventional wisdom needs to be challenged, in your opinion?
I think we spoke about it, which is the fit. I think a lot of acquirers on any side of the spectrum worry a lot about the money, a lot about the valuation, and they do not care about the fit because they are so much in love with the deal. And that's another one. Do not fall in love with your deal. Because then you're going to make the mistake of doing it when maybe it shouldn't get done. But definitely the fit. We would say fit is more important than valuation.
Yes, because what happens after is
Yep.
if the fit isn't the right fit, then
Yep.
the likelihood of you being fired even before your non-compete has expired is highly likely. All right. Is vertical integration dead in the age of AI, or is it more crucial than ever for supply chain resilience?
It's not that. Actually, I think vertical integration will continue to be a big driver for M&A. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because you want, and you see a lot of players doing that in order to create more power.
Yes, more competitive
Yes.
advantage
Yes.
to
Oh, yes.
create a really tight moat around the
Yes.
business. Yeah, and I think AI will actually help to even secure that
Yep.
further. Yeah, usually in industrials, we have metrics like overall equipment effectiveness and takt time. Do you think that's still relevant, considering that by implementing AI, it can actually optimize real-time metrics?
So I do think, AI can optimize metrics. However, here's the big however, I don't think AI is there yet. For sure, in 5 years, will be there. So to your question, I think it is still relevant. It shouldn't be the main driver,
Right.
but it is relevant. Yes.
Okay. What are your thoughts on ESG? Do you feel that it's pricing out innovation, that premium, that ESG premium? Do you feel that it's pricing out innovation, even though it's needed?
That's a tough one. ESG is close to my heart. I like it. I love it. With that
Likewise.
said, it has been politicized enough, and my impression is that it matters more in Europe than it matters here in the US due to the political environment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the
Yep.
regulations that they have
Yep.
as well. Should industrial companies prioritize software margins over hardware expertise?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So the advantage with software is that you can achieve, if well done, you can achieve, up to 80% of margins versus,
Mhm.
35 to 50% in hardware. With that said, again, it depends on your strategy, because if your strategy is to produce a physical gadget with a layer of software on top, I mean, this is what you do, you know what I mean? There will be a time, and I have seen this very well done by major corporations, that they have successfully transitioned some of that directly to be just software. But again, we're talking about, top creme de la creme company.
Okay. The Silicon Valley move fast and break things. Obviously, that makes sense for software, enterprise SaaS. Do you believe that that is fundamentally misaligned with industrial innovation?
No, it's not. But I think it is not well written, the whole move fast and break things. Ideally, if we are in a high liability industry like airplanes, do not try this at home, kids. But when you are innovating in your own company, and ideally you want to do that kind of systematic piloting, which
Right.
is, you start with a small pilot. That's Silicon Valley. Start with a small pilot, break or learn from it, pivot, make a bigger pilot, break things, learn from those, make a bigger pilot. But again, in every cycle of the piloting, in theory, you are implementing the learnings of the first and second and third pilots and so on. And, for what's worth, I have seen a lot of industrials starting to adopt that in the middle market industries. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. One of my favorite frameworks is the business model canvas. Okay, let's talk about the 100-day post-merger integration plan.
Ooh, okay.
Is that obsolete?
Oh, God, never. The whole thing starts way before. When I was at Deloitte, we used to do a lot of these pre and post merger integration plans. And we started 9 months before the acquisition was done. The planning, if you are doing it right, the planning the execution of your plan starts on day one towards your day 90. I have to say something about Siemens, which, I mean, they had these amazing processes. I would
Yes.
say they had perfected the art of the deal, and you had all this amazing methodology. And again, you start months in advance so that you hit your 3 months, and you get audited by the deal team, and hopefully you pass it with the stars. Were you my auditor, by the way?
I was Yes, well, we would have to review your accounting to make sure that it matches with our financial models. And I tell entrepreneurs, you have to understand whether it's a private equity or corporate strategic, they do this day in, day out.
Yeah.
You run your business, very two different kind of mindsets. So you need to be able to prepare, I say 2 to 3 years prior to even going to exit, because they are also doing the same thing as well.
Yes, absolutely. And
they're spending millions of dollars to do it. Let's talk about EBITDA multiples.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Does the focus on EBITDA multiples undervalue technologically forward manufacturers, processors, and producers in the industrial sector?
Repeat the question. Does
the focus on EBITDA multiples undervalue technologically forward industrial companies?
No. I would say some of them are overvalued by EBITDA multiple point of view.
Can you explain that?
Yes. So, I have seen, in a prior life, that some potential targets, because they had some kind of technology layer, because of that, they had 5x more valuation multiples than they should have, at the very least 5, sometimes 10. Oh, because they have a little piece of software in one of their divisions. But in reality, let's say their value was 15x, and they were like, oh, we're not going to go for anything on 22. It's like, go for it.
Right.
Good for you. And by the way, they would get it. That's the thing, is like, oh my gosh, like PE deep pockets people.
And the reason why you kind of are caution around that is that because technically that piece of software is not strategically integrated. In other words, it's just almost like it's slapped on, like almost like the AI tech companies now. Hey, we're AI. We have AI.
We have a chat box. Yes, but it goes deeper than that. This is not because it's software, it should be more expensive. This is like the equivalent of wine, it's a little, sometimes it's even subjective. The price is sometimes even subjective, a lot goes to God. But that's why. Because if you're going to give me a company that has you're getting me going for something that has to be rapid. If we're talking about a company that has a layer of software, in theory, that should be a strategic driver for something besides being good marketing for the company that is being sold. They're either, it's going to bring you revenue, it's going to create the moat that we spoke about.
So I really appreciate your insights. I'm going to have to definitely think about some of the answers that you provided. No, I love it. I'm
open to negotiation, people. So if any of your listeners are like, I absolutely disagree, please contact me and I will be happy to have a coffee.
Yes, absolutely. We should all have coffee.
Cannot talk about it.
Okay. All right. Moving on. We are almost halfway through this decade. What bold predictions do you have for industrial A in the next 5 years?
Bold predictions.
Yes.
I think, and I think, and they're not that bold actually, because this is part of my job to look at, what is happening in the next 3 to 5 years. And I see hyperscalers more into industrial automation work. If you look at the news from October this year, you see the same week, both Siemens and Honeywell made partnerships, Honeywell with Google and Siemens with Microsoft. And then you get also Schneider doing a partnership with Microsoft. So if you look also at threats for industrials, it's certainly hyperscalers putting things for free in the market that they used to charge for. I'm talking about machine vision. You get a lot of companies doing, the top ones, investing millions in R&D to create machine vision machinery. And then you have Amazon, Meta, and Google with that technology. They are putting it up for free in a different shape or form. But if they decide to switch it to machine vision, that's it. For those companies, they are competitors now. Not yet. Those kinds of things, things that normally you wouldn't think a hyperscaler would do. I can see
Yeah,
that
I never
happening.
thought I never thought Meta would now be an AI company, as in they actually
Mm,
own their own infrastructure.
yeah,
That's
totally.
interesting. And you're starting to see a lot of these collaborations, like you said.
Yeah, totally. What else? I have so many of those, but I will focus on the important ones. Data centers is going to be super important related to energy. That's why I was saying sector that is undervalued, certainly energy. Cooling, ESG might come
Water.
back, particularly for EMEA. And here's why, because as you know, ChatGPT and any LLM, the energy they consume for a prompt is many times, I don't have the number in my head right now, but it's at the very least 10 times more than a Google search. And if you think how this is accelerating, they are selling more and more of those. Now people are, going and getting it done. They are bound to consume more energy in their data centers. So the cooling of those data centers without destroying, the environment, the energy
Yeah.
requirements are going to be significant. And anything related to data centers, predictive maintenance for data centers,
Yep.
cybersecurity for those data centers.
Cybersecurity,
Massive
land.
land, massive. So that's one thing, one of the many. And again, I do see a lot of industrials transitioning into more of solutions providers rather than becoming or labeling themselves
Yeah.
as industrial
Right.
manufacturers
Yeah.
for a variety of reasons. But yes, those are my predictions.
I actually agree with you on the link between data centers, AI, and also water, and cooling. And I think even now that when if they can figure that out, because then quantum computing is actually even going to require so much more than AI. I probably say 1,000 times more. All right. So I appreciate those insights. I got this from one of my favorite podcasters. Imagine it's your last day on Earth many years from now, and you've accomplished everything you've ever dreamed of. But for whatever reason, you have to take everything you have ever created in this lifetime with you, and no one will ever have access to any information about you anymore. But you get to leave behind three truths, three lessons that you want to leave with the world. What are your three truths?
Oh man, that's a very deep question. Well, I'm not sure if this is a truth because I am in the process of testing it. Earlier this year, I was elected as one of the top 100 leaders in the world. That was an amazing achievement.
Congratulations.
Marshall Goldsmith, the coach, and I flew to Nashville, and he told us that one of his three truths was, let me borrow it, Marshall, was the 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 years where you spend more days with your kids without distractions, and this is no phones, no watching the game, measured by 4 hours, but let's tackle it, let's say 2 hours per day. And if you track those are the years where your revenue is so apparently, according to him, there is a financial correlation to the time you spend with your kids. So I'm hoping I'm going to come back and tell you this is one of the truths, one of my three truths, the direct correlation of the days in a year that you spend with your kids, putting your full attention to them without devices or any other distractions for at least an hour, and the income you make that year. So I'm hoping that's going to be one. I'll come back and report.
Yeah, I'm gonna test that with my dog. I don't have kids, but I have a dog, so he needs to walk and he needs to be taken care of. So I'm gonna test that.
There is no dog bumping in this. What is the dog? This is the thing I want to see.
He's gonna blow you and I out of the water if you see what he looks like.
Can you imagine the audience on this? Like, you don't need Nadia Gill in this podcast. You just need your dog.
He's actually right there. So
More views than you will ever get. Second, and I'm going to borrow the second from Oprah. See, you can tell I don't have that kind of wisdom. There is this book that Oprah wrote about. It's called This I Know. Like the first chapter or something, she talks about that we all do things for our family or friends, or spend money in our family or friends that we would never consider doing it for us. And her example is that she wanted to get this singer for her birthday, but she thought, oh, I cannot. But for the birthday of this friend, I'll get this singer. And then those friends got the singer for her birthday, and they said, we got the singer because we knew you wouldn't do it for yourself. And so the conclusion of that chapter was do things for you that you would do for your family or friends, but you're just, for whatever reason, you don't do it for yourself. Either you think you don't deserve it, or you think you will do it later. Just get it done. I agree with that. That's the second truth. Do things for you that you would do for your family or friends. The third one, and this one, I'm telling you, all my wisdom is borrowed, is that we all need some kind of three things in life to be happy, besides your level of, a level of income that allows you to not worry about what kind of food are you going to have tomorrow, or the roof above your head. So your family, your circle of friends, and certain level of mysticism in your life, whether that's religion or meditation, yoga, some kind of level of there is something bigger out there that you don't have control of. So I would say those are three truths. Nothing related to M&A. Can you imagine? Oh my Lord.
Not related to what?
Nothing related to A or industrials.
But I think that's why I asked the question, right? Because, I think we often forget ourselves that we sort of put our worth in our work, and we forget
our identity in
our identity, the things that are outside of ourselves. And so that's why, even though this is a podcast about industry, business, leadership, M&A, I always start with, who are you? And I don't really want to hear your career because I already introduced you. I want to know who you are, and the audience wants to know who you are. And then I end with this question because it really sort of pulls out the human element. And I think we forget that a lot in our daily lives. And I love your word, mysticism. Love that. All right. What is your definition of a next-gen industrialist?
That's a tough question. I'm a bigger fan. I'm a fan of actually current gen, because I think there is a the current gen.
Okay.
And here's why. I think there is an how do you call it? Overweight on youth. And I have to say there is something to be said for experience. And particularly in industrials, I have seen that the best technology people that I have worked with and that are creating actually next gen products usually actually over 50 years old.
I'm seeing that as well.
Yeah. So that's by definition, someone who has been around, has survived at least 2 financial crises, and lived to tell the tale of how the industrials evolve.
Yes, I love that, because that's actually what I'm seeing as well. And I love that. So where can people find you? On LinkedIn?
Yes.
All right. That's awesome. My goodness. This was exciting. Do you have any questions for me?
No. What is next for you? What are you doing next year? I mean, as 2024.
I have my vision for the next 5 years. I can't really. You and I are having coffee soon. So
yes.
We will talk.
All right. I'm looking forward to hearing.
Yes, absolutely. Nadia, thank you so much. That brings us to the end of today's episode with Nadia Gill. The insights we've covered about industrial M&A strategy, visioning, AI integration, value creation are crucial for any industrial entrepreneur planning their next move. Remember, in the age of AI and any future technologies, being an attractive acquisition target isn't just about current performance. It's about ensuring the current management team can work with a new owner to take the company to the next level. It's about future potential and, most importantly, strategic fit. Whether you're building to sell or building to grow, understanding these dynamics is crucial for success. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcast and share it with fellow entrepreneurs in your network. Until next time, I am Belinda Ephraim, encouraging you to aim high, keep building the future of industry, and don't be afraid to push beyond the boundaries of what is possible. Nadia, thank you again so much for this insightful conversation and sharing your amazing expertise with our community. And with that, we are going to sign off the live stream.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.